does your rent increase the longer you live in an apartment? Don't that seem backwards to y'all?
They're charging me $16.28 this month. I put my 60-day notice in. I'm not staying here. So they mad.
They say your rent's going up $150. I said, why? Nothing has changed in this place. If anything, it should go down. Like all the damages I've caused in here and my kid.
If I started off paying $1,200, by year 3 in this apartment, I'm gonna be paying $1,500. How does that make sense?
I'm still moving out. I don't know where they're gonna get the money from. They gonna figure it out.
You see the young lady on your screen right now, so you should already know we are about to go for a wild ride today. I got 3 clips I want to share with you. Let's get into this first one.
I put my 60-day notice in this raggedy ass apartment because my rent went from $1,300 to $1,500. They're charging me $16.28 this month. I put my 60-day notice in. I'm not staying here. So they mad. And their policy is that you only have to pay your last month's of rent. Why are they charging me $2,600 to move out? I'm still moving out. I don't know where they're gonna get the money from. They gonna figure it out, but gotta get the fuck out of here. I'll put my...
All right, man. So there's a lot that we got to talk about in this clip. So let's start with the obvious. What is up with this generation? Well, like, look at this young lady, man. Look at her. She's recording a video that she's going to put online on social media for the world to see. And she's laying down in bed in the covers, man. She in the blanket. On top of that, got a bonnet on her head. And look at all of the piercings, man. I don't even know how many piercings we got. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the lip, 2 in the nose, 3 in the nose. Like, this is insane. And I didn't even know, like, people with these nose rings and stuff, like, they sleep with this stuff in there. Like, yo, wild. So that I just had to address the obvious because that's OD. But let's talk about the situation that she's explaining. Always, you can expect when you live in an apartment, when that lease is up, that price is going up as well. So now they hitting her with the $200 increase, which is a pretty steep increase, you know, more than 10%. And then she's saying, hey, she about to move out. Not a problem, right? Like, if the rent is too high, you can't afford it anymore, the only solution you really have is to move out. But then when you hear the fact that she mentions that in order for her to move out in the 60-day, which we know you got to have there's usually a move out fee that they're going to hit you with. And she's saying that that's over $2,000. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind is, like, if it's in the contract that the move out fee is, you know, just 1 month of rent, then it would make sense that it would line up with that, maybe including some tax. But for it to be so much more, one thing that comes to my mind, and I could definitely be wrong about this, let me know what you think. I think more than likely she probably didn't pay all of last month's rent, and they are adding that to the amount that she's going to need in order to move out in the 60 days. And the reason why I'm leaning into that is because you heard what she said at the very end. She says that, hey, good luck with them getting their money. She acting like they're going to be catching the L. No, the L is going to be caught by you if you refuse to pay that move out fee. It's just so interesting to me that people put themselves in positions where, you know, they make decisions that are financially irresponsible. Like, yo, if you don't have it now, you don't have it now. Now, why not go see if there's some arrangement that you can make, as opposed to getting on social media and telling the world, like, hey, they want me to pay over $2,000 to move out. And guess what? I'm moving out in the next 60 days and I ain't paying them nothing. Chuck a deuce, right? Like, that's so financially irresponsible. That's not the way to move. It's about identifying the way that you can make financial decisions when you need to make a pivot so that it doesn't put you in a hole, because now you're going to be lugging around a $2,000 debt if you're not willing to at least put something towards it.
I seen a creator on here talking about people need to stop moving and bouncing around. That's why the rent high. Just renew your lease, like all this other stuff. But let me give you the perspective of a mover, right? I've had 5 apartments in the last 5 years. Let me tell you why. In one of my apartments, my lease was up. They sent me a renewal offer. They said your rent's going up $150. I said, why? Nothing has changed in this place. If anything, it should go down. Like all the damages I've caused in here and my kid. So, but it's going up.
I gotta pause it right there. This man said he expects his rent to go down because he's lived in an apartment. They haven't made any changes. And more importantly, he mentions the fact that he himself has caused damage to the apartment, but he wants the price to go down. That's just so interesting to me, but I had to stop it and just point out that because that's ludicrous. But let's get back to it.
This place, if anything, it should go down. Like all the damages I've caused in here and my kid. So, but it's going up. They say, yeah, you know, the market, blah, blah. The market. Okay. Do my research. I pull up the website. There's a unit next door available. Same layout, same floor plan, same style. And there's no new renovations. $200 cheaper than what I'm paying currently. Not the new rent. That would have been $350 cheaper. What I have now, it was $200 cheaper than that. But what's the catch? It's for new tenants.
Yeah.
New business. Okay. So I try to call them, try to figure this out. Hey, bro, by the way, can I just move in that one? Because I'm going to just move in there. It's $200 cheaper, same floor plan, same everything. We good, right? No, you actually have to pay a $500 transfer fee just to move units. And then on top of that, you don't get that new price, that new rent. That's only for new tenants. Since you're an existing tenant, it would just be the same rent as your other place. Make it make sense. So then I said, you know what? Screw it. We gone. 60 days. Here you go. We out. I checked the apartment website. What do you know? The unit that I'm moving out of is now $200 cheaper for a new tenant. You see how that works? It's not us. It's the apartment complexes. It's the scam that they have going on. But this is the best part. When you pull up a new complex, they will have newer renovations and they'll give you 2 months free just because you're a new tenant moving in. And your rent is going to be cheaper than the last place you stayed at. So while moving costs and all of that sucks for sure, I hate doing that. In the long run, I have a cheaper place, a nicer place, and 2 months free. So that is why I move around. It's not our fault at all. It's the apartment's fault. It's the apartment industry.
I feel like there's a lot of people out here that don't understand how apartments work. Like there is no apartment building that you are going to rent and your rent is going to actually get less. Like I've never seen that ever. I've never seen that. And I don't want to miss the point of like his whole point. His whole point is the fact that, you know, there are, I guess, people criticizing people for moving around and moving from one place to the next. And listen, I feel like if you got to do what you got to do, moving around in order to make sure that your rent is within your budget and what you can afford, then unfortunately you got to do that. Is that an inconvenience? Heck yeah. You better believe your bottom dollar. Like my man said, nobody likes moving. The apartment industry, it's not a scam. It's just the way that it works, man. We live in a capitalistic country, and that is the way it works, man. The prices are always going to go up. Very rarely are they going to go down, especially on things like housing, man. Like housing, it rarely goes down, especially when it comes to the apartments. I remember the first apartment that I ever rented. It was a 2-bedroom in Atlanta, Georgia for $500. You ain't gonna ever see nothing like that. You ain't gonna ever see something like that come back ever again. And if I was to embed it in my mind that now when I go out apartment hunting, every 2-bedroom needs to be $500, I am retarded. I'm clueless. I don't understand how the world works. The dude said he's moved to 5 different places in the last 5 years. That means that this guy is aware that every year the rent is going up. So why are you researching the same apartment complex that you're at? Like you should be researching where you're going to move next if you know you are the type of person that is never, ever going to take and pay that rent increase. Like if you know that's the way you move and operate, the research you need to be doing is not what they charging new tenants in the place that you are currently living, but you need to be figuring out what place can you pivot to. And it sounds like you got a great deal, right? But isn't that the irony? He's complaining about the fact that the apartment complex that he was living in is giving this great deal, $200 less rent than what he was paying previously before the rent increase to new tenants. And then he goes and is a new tenant at another apartment building and he's bragging about it. Like, make that make sense. That's a contradiction. Like, that is the way the apartment industry works. Like, they have turnaround. Like, if you live in certain apartment buildings, most people will be leaving after a certain period of time, depending on what area you're living in. And for that reason, apartments, they have to employ these little special move-in deals bills in order to keep new tenants in there to fill these places. And that's part of the reason why you see in some places the rent increases are a lot higher, because they're probably having a lot more turnaround. This is what a lot of people unfortunately don't tend to understand. They just look at it as, oh man, the apartments are trying to scam me. Look, the apartments are a business, and they recognize that they are in the business of providing I would say, a need that so many people have, which is housing. But like with anything, you can price yourself out of the market. As long as you're in an area where you can set an average rent and an average rent increase that the majority of your tenants are able to pay, then by all means, they're going to continue to play and run on that practice. But I find it so interesting that people, especially like this gentleman here, how have you lived in 5 different apartments in the last 5 years and you don't know how this works? And you still are coming to the internet to complain about it. Like, yo, there's only 1 or 2 options. You are either going to move or you're going to figure out a way so that you can generate more income and be able to cover whatever that increase is going to be. Just anticipate it. But expecting your rent to go low, especially like this guy, he said he's damaging the apartment and he wants his rent to be less. That is absolutely more than likely, I would say, never going to happen. Like the likelihood of your rent going down in an apartment building, man, there's 99% chance that that's not going to happen. It's different if you are like renting a house or renting a condo or renting directly from somebody where you are talking directly to your landlord and y'all can work something out. Like in those instances, you may have a chance to be able to, you know, keep your rent or minimize the amount of that increase. But if you're living in an apartment building, like, come on, man, like it's essentially like working for a corporation. You're not going to walk into, you know, Walmart and tell them how to set their prices. Like that's just not the way it's going to be. It's going to be like, yo, you either going to shop here or you're not. And as you can see, some people are going to choose to stay. And some people, like the people that we've seen in these videos, they're going to choose to go.
How does your rent increase the longer you live in an apartment? Don't that seem backwards to y'all? I don't live in an apartment no more, but I don't know, I just be thinking about random stuff, bro. So I'm moving in this apartment, it's $1,200 a month. The longer I live in this apartment, my rent gonna keep going up. That don't seem backwards to y'all, bro. So I live in this apartment 3 years. Over these 3 years, you ain't made no improvements. You barely fix anything when I call maintenance. You ain't did nothing to increase the value of this apartment. But if I started off paying $1,200, by year 3 in this apartment, I'm gonna be paying $1,500. How does that make sense? But if I move out and somebody new move in my old apartment that I was about to pay $1,500 for, that new tenant gonna be paying $1,200 or even less because y'all might be throwing some kind of deal or something. Bro, how does that even work? If anything, I feel like the rent should go down the longer you live there. Y'all ain't increased the value at all, bro. How is the rent going up?
Most people feel like, yo, it's unfair for apartment complexes to do this. But what you have to realize is when you have a business mindset, you got to recognize that that is not how business works. Businesses want to increase their profit over time, not decrease it. By decreasing your rent, that means they're losing money. They don't want to do that. Now, as a consumer, and this is the key, as a consumer, you're going to hate it. Every consumer hates when prices goes up, especially for something that you know you were able to get at a lower price. I am not ignorant or unaware to that point. Everybody, including myself, if I see something on sale at a certain price and I decide not to get it, and then I go back into the store and now it's full price, now I'm more than likely not going to buy it. I'm going to wait until either it goes back on sale or I'm going to find out a way that I can get some type of coupon so that I can get it at the price that I saw before. Like that is just, I believe, human nature, man. We want the lowest possible price, but that's from the consumer perspective. We got to also take into mind that the businesses don't want what we want. They actually want the opposite. They want to make as much money as possible. And it was something that he said that really caught my attention that I think is so interesting. He was talking about as you are in the apartment, it's like, you know, like the value isn't going up. They're not making improvements, you know, like the staff that's coming through to provide maintenance, like they're bad. And he's saying that the value isn't increasing, so the price shouldn't increase. But you talking in a way as if it's an asset. Like living in an apartment is not an asset. It's an expense on most people's account. Like it's not an asset unless you are the owner of the apartment building. So to expect to get an appreciation in value from your housing, it's rare, especially if you're living at an apartment complex. Every apartment complex is not created equal. It's not. And this is why, going back to the second guy, you got to do your research. Like it's important to read the reviews. If you can, talk to people who've lived in certain places. And we know that, unfortunately, you can move into a place, it's being run great, and then a year or two later, or, unfortunately, in some people's case, a few months later, they may sell it, or a new management team may come over and take over. And then now everything that was great in your apartment is now going to hell. I've had that. I think that the apartment that I've been staying with, been here for multiple years, and I think they have changed management at least twice, right? The good thing about it is the service hasn't gone down. And it's just so interesting, though, that some people, unfortunately, deal with those changes that actually come as a negative to them. And that sucks. But then those other instances is just people who didn't do their research. They moved into bad places, whether it was because the rent was low or they did have that move in special, and they didn't take those other things into consideration until it was too late. So it's really important that when we're moving, especially if you are, moving into an apartment building, do your research, not just when it's time to pivot, time to move because your current rent is too high, but go get some insights on how does the maintenance move? How are, the improvements? What does that rent increase look like every single year when the rent is going to renew? Or the lease is going to renew. It's important to do as much research as you can so you can prepare for that situation, to not just figure out, okay, what am I going to be paying now? Like, think about it. If you are planning to live in a place for 3 to 5 years, incorporate those rent increases. Like the guy said, if you're paying $1,500 for rent, if it's a 10% increase, then it's going up by $150. More than likely, you should probably round that up to about $200 every single year. So that by year 2, when you get in there, it's going to go from the, what did I say, $1,500, now it's going to be $17. Then you get in there, it's going to probably be $19, right? It's going to continue to go up until you move out. And unfortunately, some places are going to take advantage of their leasers or their tenants to a greater degree. And that, again, is important to do in your research to figure that out if you can. Now, I want to know about your experience. Do you live in an apartment? Have you lived in an apartment? What has been your experience? Do you feel like, or do you agree with the people in this video that, hey, like rent prices should be going down as opposed to going up? Would love to hear your thoughts. Any horror stories that you may even have to share about, moving in or moving out of an apartment, or some good deals that you might have got moving into a new place. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back with another one. There is a video on the screen for you to check out, a latest video that I did. I hope you enjoy it. Until then, stay blessed.